Finishes and factions catching action.
Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of Finishes and Factions. This week, it's Finishes and Factions does Smackdown, and this week we are on the first leg of the European tour in Barcelona, Spain. So this week you've got myself, Rich, as normal, and again, as normal, you have my co-host, Adam. Adam, how you doing, buddy?
I'm all good, mate. I'm all good. And Friday Night Smackdown this week came to us from the Olympic Arena. Now, during the different points during this, we're sort of told that it's been like 6 years since WWE has been. I think it's supposed to be broadcast from Spain. Yeah. I'm pretty sure Spain is always a stop on the European tour. They do sort of twice a year. And this is actually SmackDown's first time being broadcast from Spain. So much to go through.
Well, yeah, exactly. And we've got the roster to look at as well. The matches and stuff without the Spanish people in the crowd going absolutely crazy for all these superstars making their way to the ring.
100%. I mean, the Spanish crowd in general were absolutely phenomenal. I can't imagine anybody sat in the back thinking, "Do you know what? I think this show was actually pretty shit."
If anyone was sat there saying that, then I think they need a slap in the face from Mr. Socko. Because quite frankly, anyone who sat there and meant the crowd in this arena are shit, crazy or stupid.
100%. 100%.
Especially with this first match that we had, and with the promos building up to it. I mean, what a strong start to a normal SmackDown, but on a European tour.
Yeah, I mean, the first person that we're sort of introduced to in his in-ring promo, we are treated to the brand new United States champion, Mr. L.A. Knight.
Yeah.
I knew one of us was going to do it.
It just seems to be a running thing now. It's got to be done. You?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, and LA Knight basically comes out to talk to us all about how it's so much better now that he is now he's the US champion, which honestly I can't disagree with. I've been saying for a good couple of weeks that the previous champion Nakamura was knackered Mora.
We've been saying that championship needed to change hands. Obviously with Shinsuke's personal issues and the fact that he's had that title for 6 months and he's defended it twice. And both defense. Well, he defended it twice and he lost it in the second defense. So, I'm sure if we'd have been doing episodes of Finishes and Factions when Roman was holding the main title with the Bloodline and he was appearing every sort of 6 weeks, we did have these conversations, between ourselves about how annoying it was not having a champion there defending every so often, or even just showing up and making an appearance. Shinsuke was a very poor champion, and a lot of people on social media have put it down as the second worst United States run behind Dean Ambrose's. So, there we go. It's a bit of an interesting one on that one.
Yeah, definitely. But
LA Knight will definitely have a better run with it, though.
LA Knight will come out. LA Knight he'll come out, and it's. He's already talking about wanting to be sort of that fighting champion, essentially. The first to answer the call is our good friend Big Jimmy Uso comes out to challenge for the title. There's a few words exchanged, nothing more than I'm free, fucking let's get into it sort of thing.
So I didn't get to see this live because I was a little bit late onto the show. But I've seen a clip online. Is this the bit where he refers to the United States title as the tag title in the middle of the ring before they edited the show and changed it?
Yeah, so Jimmy Uso goofed a little bit, and referred to the US as the US tag titles, and he's gone a little bit viral for it, and I'm
I
still
mean,
seeing.
I've seen clips today, to be fair.
Yeah, and
Fair play to
yeah,
WWE, though, the skills behind their editing department, because if you were to give me that clip and tell me to try and edit it to the way they've done it, it would take me days. And like several different programs just to make sure I got it as best as I could get it, and I don't think I could have done as well as they did. You would not even have known that blunder was there if you didn't watch it live and you watched it recorded. It was so well done.
No, this is it.
All right, that's my little nerdy bit out of the way with their production. Because...
Well, after Jimmy Uso's goof, we have also sort of Solo Sikoa come out with Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga in tow. And in fairness, even I thought Solo Sikoa was coming out saying, yeah, I want to crack at US title, but he's still trying to crawl so far up the Samoan Werewolf's backside that it's difficult to tell where one ends and the other begins. Because he comes out and advocates for Jacob Fatu having a crack at LA Knight as well.
Must admit, I think we know where Solo Sikoa has been learning how to do all this tongue punching of the fart box. I think Solo and Mike Mazzano have been talking to each other backstage. You know, I think him and the Miz have been getting to know each other a little bit too well, because the Miz is a very well-known, good quality ass kisser.
I mean, in some cases, it's not a bad quality to have. It's just not a quality we want in a in any kind of champion, let alone the United States champion.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely not. But we definitely won't get any tongue punching in the fart box from LA Knight.
No, this is it, and yeah, it's a case that Jimmy and LA Knight are basically getting into a bit of a verbal sparring match between them pair, and I'd love to say all three of these previous sort of Bloodline 2.0 members, Solo, Fatu, and Tonga. But again, we're not really seeing Tonga say an awful lot.
I mean, all you tend to get from Tama Tonga is yeah. That is pretty much what his ability is at the moment when it comes to speaking with a microphone in his hand.
I don't think it's a lack of ability.
I just think it may not be a lack of ability, but that's all the ability that we're being shown. He could probably, if you went to YouTube and looked at some of his stuff from outside of WWE, you could probably find some incredible promos that he's cut. I just haven't got the time to go and sit and watch those videos myself.
No, this is it. I'm in very much the same boat myself. So
yeah, I do manage to occasionally find a couple of decent like promos on when I'm scrolling through TikTok or Facebook Reels that I always seem to end up seeing wrestling stuff from 20 years ago, which is always
and a laugh. Yeah, but after some verbal sparring between, in a very much sort of a handicap 3-on-2 situation, we have Braun Strowman, the
biggest SOB.
The Braun Strowman Express come charging down the ramp, trying to basically level the playing field after Tonga, Fatu, and Sikoa jumped the other two. And then Nick Aldis comes out and books it as a 6-man tag to begin right now. And I've accused Nick Aldis before of sort of coming out in this way. Booking this type of a match is a very Teddy Long sort of thing to do. And I stick by that analogy.
A tag match, didn't he?
Oh, he loved a tag match.
You know what? We talk a lot about Teddy Long in these podcast episodes, but for both of us at the age we are, he was a big part of our wrestling experience when we first got into it. And you knew as soon as you saw Teddy Long come out, player, that you were either going to see a tag match or someone was going one-on-one with the dead man himself. And at what point do you need anything better than a solos match with The Undertaker or a half-decent tag match? So, yeah, bring back Teddy Long.
Yeah, this is it. I mean, I think Teddy Long is still making appearances in the in the 2K25 video game as it goes. I'm pretty sure he is still a playable manager
In 2K25.
Yeah. But yeah, this is where Rich can chime in a little bit more because it is a case that he did actually see the 6-man tag. So yeah, Rich, what was your impressions of the 6-man tag match?
From what I saw of the 6-man tag match, so yeah, I missed the start of it due to being late to the TV and have not had the time over the weekend to catch up due to work commitments. A lot of my notes for this match were very sort of. I didn't get a lot of notes for this match, but what I did get was reasonable, I suppose. So I've got my notes basically start at the ending of this match, but there was a lot of different bits within the match that I enjoyed watching. I couldn't necessarily tell you about any of the spots that from the match, as I can't fully remember all of them. But for me, a majority of the action from this was sort of afterwards.
Yeah, so a vast majority of the meat to this match, what did happen sort of after it all went down, but we sort of joined the match in progress as I think anybody that's watched WWE longer than a week will know that if a match is booked immediately, by the time we come back from any sort of advert break or anything like that, it is a case that we're joining the match in progress sort of thing. And one of the things that I noted down, not really a spot as such, but just something that I wanted to point out, was that you could definitely tell that they were billing Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga on one side as obviously the established tag team. These three are used to working together as a team, whereas on the other side you've got LA Knight, Jimmy Uso, and Braun Strowman, very sort of ragtag group of heroes in the story that are not used to working together. And I think the way they did that was sort of regular tags between the Samoans, very sort of isolating off one person in the ring, those classic tag team tactics. But yeah, that all goes a bit to shit once LA Knight manages to get a hot tag to Strowman, who then just proceeds to mow down everybody a little bit like a German railgun at D-Day.
Yeah, unfortunately, how do I put this without being a dickhead about it? We've seen a lot of Jacob Fatu and Braun Strowman the last few weeks with different between matches and beatdowns and stuff. I'm getting a little bit fed up with this whole sort of storyline at the moment. I've enjoyed watching Jimmy Uso as a solo. I've enjoyed watching LA Knight on his solo runs. I've even enjoyed watching Jacob in his solo stuff. But this tag match didn't really have it in for me. The actual match itself was quite boring. I didn't really think too much of it. It was, like I said, for me, this match started as the bell rung and the afters were had, and that was where it started getting a lot more intriguing.
Yeah. So the match itself was won by Strowman hitting a running power slam
on Tama Tonga.
Yeah, the literal cannon fodder of the other team, basically. And we then get Solo Sikoa's sneak attack.
Yeah, Yeah, so I wrote
to
down that Braun Strowman wins with the running slam on Tamatonga for the 3 count. Is he lifts his
Mhm.
arms to celebrate, Solo hits him with a Samoan spike, and then I've got that LA Knight chases Solo Sikoa out of the arena through the crowd.
Yeah,
Fatu and Strowman decide they're going to have a little bit of a thing in the ring, end up with having a sort of brawling between them. From where Fatu hits 2 moonsaults in a row while Strowman's on the floor, and then as he goes to pull a third one, Strowman got out of the way of it. No, he pulled the third one, sorry, after repositioning Strowman in the middle of the ring. But Fatu's not quite finished here. So you see Tamatonga and Fatu kind of going up the ramp. They're kind of being pushed away. Well, Tamatonga's basically telling Fatu, come with me, come on. You've done what you got to do. It's time to go. Walks up the ramp. Fatu kind of looks at him and kind of follows for a few paces and then just decides, fuck it. Runs back down to the ring, runs around the outside of the ring and cannonballs. I put it as a cannonball. Basically, it was like he put Braun Strowman through timekeeping barrier and pretty much left him lying there as he got up and disappeared off. The only issue I have with this scenario is a lot of these guys took a reasonable beating in the ring. Fatu gave Strowman more of a beating on the outside, but Fatu's no-selling, again, is really starting to piss me off. Like, there are some moves that I get they're trying to build him as a powerhouse, and he's meant to be one of those wrestlers that for someone to take him down, it's got to be a hell of a match, right? And you've got to have a hell of an effort doing so. But generally, yeah, Fatu's like no selling some stuff that he really should be selling, and it's really not helping him or the people he's wrestling against.
yeah. You get to a point with no selling where it starts damaging the person you're working with
Right?
and
And he's
damaging
done
their
it.
credibility.
They're building Braun Strowman as like the big bastard he is. You know, this guy is a huge person, and if Jacob Fatu's just no selling some of these moves, it really doesn't make Braun look as big and powerful as WWE are trying to make him. You know, they're making hard work for themselves, work smarter, not harder, and they're not doing that with Jacob Fatu spending so much time in the ring with Strowman no selling him. Well, and LA Knight as well. He's got a new title around his waist, and Fatu's not helping him because he's no selling things like the BFT and stuff like that. You can't do that at this level.
No, it is a case that there are. I have seen videos where Fatu is very good at being able to take care of his opponents in the ring, where obviously the moves matter.
You've seen the same video I have. Then it's the one of the moonsault and how he lands it just so his knees are nowhere near his opponent, but he lands on his arms on them so they don't take the brunt of the move he does.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that was so. Some of these videos floating around on how these wrestlers do these moves. If you get an opportunity to watch them, do right purely for the fact, like, yes, there's another interview going around with JD McDonough from Judgment Day with Chris Van Vliet talking about the RKO he took off the cage from Randy Orton last year, and they're saying about pulling crash mats out and stuff. The back, behind the scenes of wrestling has been opened up by so many other creators that if you get an opportunity to watch how they do things, do it. It's fantastically entertaining and so educational at the same time.
yeah, it gives you an eye. It's that peek behind the curtain, isn't it? It's that. It's like in the UK back in the 90s, there used to be a. It's not wrestling related. There used to be a program on Channel 5 that used to debunk different magic, like magic tricks and
Oh,
illusions and
that
things
was the
like that.
Teller and Fortune one.
So No, but similar. So Penn and Teller have always been really good at just giving you enough to not ruin the trick, but to give you an idea as to how it's done.
Yeah.
This one was done by a completely mass magician that used to pull the trick off. You used to watch it on screen, and then they'd take you back and show you a different angle so that you could see how it was done and things like that. I used to love watching this show, and some of the interviews, as Richard said, that you see floating around on the internet do something very similar. Is they give you a different angle to be able to see how it is that they're doing it. Like
If you
most of
want
the
to
time
watch
when
something with some substance that you know is going to be true, anything by Chris Van Vliet, any of the interviews he does with these superstars, they are 100% legit. There is
yeah,
there's no
100%.
bullshit in a Chris Van Vliet interview. It's straight up. They're brilliant. They are the best there are for wrestling interviews out there.
Yeah, very much so. It's certainly one of the ones that I personally quite enjoy watching when it comes to sort of wrestling interview content. Is that he does what he does very very well.
He does. So
Um, yeah, so we go from that 6-man tag
into a Hall of
into a
Fame
beating.
promo.
So this one was specifically for Triple H. And obviously, I imagine you've probably seen the same sort of interview. I've seen an interview, I can't remember who conducted the interview, but it was an interview with Mark Calloway, otherwise known as The Undertaker, about Triple H's induction.
Oh, I don't
And
think
as
I've
much
seen
as he
that.
comes across as a bit of a self-centered arsehole on screen, he's not actually, from what we're told, he's not actually anywhere close to being that bad. Is that it was only ever going to be somebody else that had to put him in. He was never going to put himself in. That's
Yeah,
the interview that I've seen. I'm assuming you may well have seen the same one.
possibly seen it. I watch a lot of wrestling content, so more than likely. I mean, I think me and Adam send each other maybe 20, 30 clips a day just of different bits that we've seen from either the weekly programs that we've watched or old school clips of Enzo Amore and Big Cass and all sorts of other stuff. So, yeah, no, a lot of wrestling has been viewed. I've probably seen it, probably not. One thing I wish I hadn't seen is this next match. I'm not. This for me was the worst match of the evening, purely for the fact that it's got Charlotte Flair in it.
So we done so have we done the VTs and everything around Bianca Belair and all of the drama that goes with that? Because that's what I've got
Is
next.
that what you've got next? I haven't made a note of
Yeah.
it, but I probably messed up with that one. But yeah, no, there's some interesting stuff going with Bianca Belair, to be fair. Those VTs
Yes.
opened up the door on a little bit more of the Naomi Jade Cargill situation, which was always nice.
Yeah, so we had a VT promo recapping everything that had happened. We then went to I called it an empty arena promo, although a lot of people have said that Jade Cargill's gone back to AEW, but a little bit of a jab at the fact that they've had some quite empty shows recently.
Yeah, this was the
Um,
interview kind of finding out from Jade what happened exactly, because we found out Naomi gave her an ass kicking, but we didn't know. All we were shown was that Jade Cargill was left lying on the hood of a car with a smashed windscreen surrounding her ass.
Yeah, and in this interview, she basically says physically she's okay. She's ready to return back to in-ring action, which is always a good thing.
Yeah,
I remember seeing Jade Cargill in the early days of AEW, and very impressive wrestler. Haven't seen her wrestle in WWE yet that I can remember.
well, her
Um,
injury was just before we started Finishers and Factions, so we've definitely not really covered much of Jade Cargill in ring at all on the podcast, apart from when she made her appearance at Elimination Chamber and give Naomi her ass kicking that she needed.
well, one of the things she talks about in this interview is her feelings towards Naomi and sort of the betrayal, because the impression that I've got after interviews with both Bianca and now Jade is that the three of them were friends.
Yes.
That like they were really quite tight together, and yeah, apparently this resentment that Naomi's bore towards Jade more so is something that's come completely out of the blue to the other two. Like neither of them seem to have seen it coming.
Well, I don't think. I mean, as a viewer, we didn't really see it coming. You called the fact that Naomi had done it, but we couldn't really put a finger on why she'd done it. And it was kind of nice to find out a little bit more about why she decided that she'd had enough of Jade Cargill. Which, I mean, her reasons weren't the best reasons in the world. I mean, but there was definitely some valid points in there.
I mean, the one thing that I don't think anybody's really touched on yet until this interview went out was more to do with obviously the when once the footage, if you like, came out of supposedly Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan hanging around where Jade had been assaulted shortly afterwards. It was a case that they very much got the blame. And in fairness, I would be willing to say that it was probably Naomi that was the anonymous source that came from to try and shift some blame. But they were more so victims in this situation to me than anybody than not as much as Jade Cargill herself, but sort of victims by association, is that they didn't do anything but very much got the blame for it.
Yeah, no, and for a long time, everyone's been picking on Liv and Raquel for it, and basically kind of treating them like they're outcasts because they were accused of doing what was a very brutal attack to Jade. So now they've had some serious matches with um, Bianca and Naomi in the tag division, and obviously they took the titles off them as well. It was just a big shock that it came out to be Naomi that did it when everyone was convinced it was Liv and Raquel.
Yeah, this is it. But yeah, we've during this interview we actually have Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez sort of walk into this empty arena, seemingly just arriving at said arena, sort of confront Cargill about them having a lot of the blame. And it basically ends up in a bit of a bitch match between Liv and Jade, to which we've actually had a match booked for next week.
Yes, in Bologna, Italy, is next week's SmackDown.
Yeah, so we've got Liv and Jade in a singles match in Bologna next week.
I mean, that's definitely going to be a good match. That's going to be
It
an
definitely.
incredible match, to be fair, because Liv Morgan will not go down without a fight. And Jade Cargill's, she got some fight in her. She's had 4 months on the sidelines. She's looking to kick some ass and kick it good and proper.
Yeah, this is when we now move on to the BFAB Charlotte Flair stuff.
Yeah, no, yeah. For some reason, normally I'm all over the VTs. This week, I seem to have screwed the pooch a little bit. But yeah, so
Well,
this.
in fairness, we did as close to live watch-alongs of this episode as we could possibly do. So it's fair to say that we were trying to note take at the same time as trying to watch the episode, which is how we normally note take anyway. But because we do it off the edit that comes out afterwards, it can sometimes be a lot easier so that we don't end up falling behind. At the end of the day, SmackDown is now a 3-hour show. It's the longest show out of the 3 episodics of the week,
Yes.
generally.
Yeah, no,
So
it all SmackDown feels the longest as well. I know it is the longest, but there are some weeks with SmackDown I get to the end and I'm like, oh, I can't do anymore. It's completely killed me
yeah,
off. What did yeah? So
no,
this BFAB Charlotte Flair match was enough to kill anyone off, I think. it, there was a few half decent moves to start off with, but again, with this one, the match wasn't the main talking point. So I've got here at some point that B-Fab managed to get a 2 count off a massive kick onto Charlotte Flair. And then Charlotte Flair hits a super kick and a natural selection into a figure eight lock. But that was more the end of the match. There wasn't a huge amount I found between the start and the end of the match that was too enticing. Like I said, I'm not sure if it's because Charlotte was in the match and I just switched off, which is a shame because B-Fab put up a fairly good opportunity for what was going on.
Yeah. I mean, in the interest of fairness, I'm not a huge Charlotte Flair fan either, but we can't really sort of take away from what it is that she has sort of accomplished, Nepo baby or not. I mean, the woman's held 6 WWE Women's Champions, 7 Women's World Champions, 2 NXT Championships, a Women's Tag Team Championship, and she's been the winner of 2 different Women's Royal Rumble matches as well. And yeah,
her career has been full of accolades. The issue I have with Charlotte Flair, as we say every week, is the fact that she just gets it given to her, where everyone else is working their absolute socks off and their goal is to main event WrestleMania. And everyone else in the women's division is doing what they can and doing it the right way. And Charlotte Flair comes in and goes, yeah, I'm not coming back unless I get this, this, and this. And it just gets given to her, which I think is piss poor, considering the women's division is probably stronger without her in it than it is with her in it.
I don't think she brings anything to. I think at one point she very much brought something to the table for it. Now, I really don't think she's not bringing anything to the table now, and it's.
She spent so long bringing to the table. Now she's decided she's going to start taking from it.
Yeah, it just doesn't. We don't get anything from her apart from a bunch of self-centered promos and.
It's the same old heel Charlotte Flair that we've been getting for the last 15 years.
Yeah, although something new that she did do during a match is that she did sort of take a leaf out of Stephanie Vacure's book, but ends up going a step further and turning it into some kind of modified Three Amigos suplex chain, which, yeah, it was. I remember sitting there like, how the fuck am I meant to write this up in notes for me to be able to remember when we actually get round to record this shit? Really, really didn't get it, but
no, but it was a good move to watch. But yeah, I couldn't name it. Modified hip thrust style thing.
Yeah.
It was definitely a strange one, but it was an interesting one to watch as well. If you want to see what it is that we're talking about, you need to go and watch the B-Fab Charlotte Flair match from last week's SmackDown. This week's SmackDown. Yeah, this week's SmackDown.
Yeah, we're not not that far out the loop just yet.
No, not quite. Yeah, so like I said, this match finishes with the combination from Charlotte Flair of the super kick into natural selection, which I will say is actually quite a nice little move anyway. And the figure eight lock is always something that she's used. This time though, she did lock it in properly to the fact that B-Fab taps out and Charlotte Flair is not having any of it. She's decided that even with the bell ringing, 3 times in total they rang that bell, that she was not letting that hold off. And the only time she did release that hold is when we got to see Charlotte Flair's WrestleMania opponent come running down to the ring.
WrestleMania opponent and current SmackDown Women's Champion,
Yeah, got a bit,
Tiffany Stratton,
got some
and
Tiffy
she
time.
came out. We got some Tiffy time, but this isn't the Tiffany. This isn't the Tiffy we're used to seeing.
This was bad bitch Tiffy. She come
Yeah,
running out like she wanted to maim Charlotte Flair, and I mean, I think maim is pretty much what they did. What happens next does not. I don't think we can put into words the brawl that these two women get into. Like, it was absolute mayhem. Um, the well, yeah, like it. This Tiffy and Charlotte Flair decide they're going to get into it. They're not waiting until WrestleMania. They're having some, and they're having some now. And yeah, they're just beating each other left, right, and centre. The one note I did make from this beatdown, at one point at the bottom of the ramp, you have a selection of security trying to hold Charlotte Flair back, and Tiffy moonsaults off. I think it was the turnbuckle rather than the ropes. She takes out the entire group of security with the moonsault. Does not hit Charlotte at all, but Charlotte just falls over like a pin in a bowling alley. She was just the one on the corner. The entire lot of them tumbled, but yeah, she completely missed Charlotte by a mile, but whipped out most of the security, if not all of the security. I think tumbled with that moonsault. It was quite funny to watch actually.
oh, 100%. And yeah, this brawl, this absolute chaos, just ends up. It's becomes a bit of a focal point, really.
Well, yeah, because they finally managed to separate these two women. Bearing in mind, like, these two women are going absolutely nuts. They finally managed to separate them, and it takes us into a Drew McIntyre promo um, about. This is basically just Drew crying about Damian Priest, who, and then we get the like a recap of the last 12 months and what these two have done to each other to get up to this point that we have, where Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre look like they're going to end up with a match on the grandest stage of them all. It's basically just saying that how every time Drew gets somewhere and starts getting in front of himself, he gets screwed, and there's only one person that benefits from him and from him getting screwed every time, and it's Damian Priest. Obviously, Drew won the title. Damian cashed in his money in the bank to then beat Drew to take said title. Um, at money in the Bank, there was that issue. Priest eliminated Drew McIntyre at the Royal Rumble, and then eliminated him again from the Elimination Chamber, cutting off his last opportunity to get to the main event of WrestleMania that way. Yeah, Damian Priest has pretty much been doing what he can to fuck with Drew as much as he can recently, well, over the last 12 months. And Drew basically says that he's going to give Priest that much of an ass kicking that he won't be able to take anything from him ever again.
Yeah, it's a couple of minutes of crying from Drew, basically.
Pretty much.
Um,
With a few little clips of things that, the visual of what he's talking about within him crying.
yeah. Um, yeah, and this then goes into an in-ring promo, which is an episode of Ms. TV.
Now, this is the
Um,
first episode of Miz TV that we have featured here on Finishes and Factions. And to be fair, as much as I dislike The Miz, this was probably one of the best episodes of Miz TV. It's, the smug little bastard walks himself down to the ring with his microphone, and then Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton come bursting back out into the arena, beating the living crap out of each other still. So yeah, they basically sodded Miz TV off. The cameras all went back to see Charlotte Flair and Tiffy going absolutely nuts at the back of the arena. Yeah,
Yeah, I very much got the impression that this wasn't a planned. This wasn't. It wasn't something that they'd. I don't certainly don't think they told Miz about this interruption to his segment, because I very much got the impression that that wasn't what he was expecting.
yeah. I personally feel that those two may have some real life heat, and they were just using that to build a little bit more into this WrestleMania match. Don't get me wrong, it worked. I'm a lot more invested in this match after watching this segment than I was anyway. Normally, I must admit, when it comes to WrestleMania and Charlotte, I use her matches as an opportunity to go and make some food and get a drink and bathroom break and stuff like that. But now slightly more intrigued by the fact that I want to watch Tiffy beat Charlotte and retain that championship, just because Charlotte doesn't need another accolade, where Tiffy could do with the scalp of, you know, a definite future Hall of Famer from the women's division.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. But yeah, once Tiffany and Charlotte are ushered back into the back as such, it is a case that yeah, we get to proceed with Ms. TV, which isn't a particularly long segment, as
That's only a bad thing.
Miz is there basically to interview Cody Rhodes, and I think Cody Rhodes' intro was probably longer than the Miz TV segment in total.
Yeah, well, Miz basically started picking on Cody, didn't he? He said that Cody last week got beat. Oh, at Elimination Chamber got beaten up by two great rappers, and he is a man who will be facing. You know, Cody got beaten up by two great rappers. One of them being Travis Scott, the other one being John Cena, who is Cody's WrestleMania opponent. But unlike The Miz, Cody won't be beating Cena at WrestleMania because obviously we can't have a conversation about John Cena and WrestleMania without The Miz having to inform us yet again that he was the one to beat John Cena at WrestleMania for a title. That's probably one of the only things he's done at WrestleMania, so he does get to keep harping on about that one and has done so again this week.
Yeah.
When Cody Rhodes comes down to the ring, he's trying to do his normal intro, and Miz, being the annoying little asshole that we know he is, and we love him so dearly for, tells the production team to cut Cody's music. He says, "We don't have time for a sing along with Cody Rhodes," and Cody kicks him in the gut and sets him up for a crossroads on that one, because Cody had had enough of Miz already. And the fact that Cody then goes on to inform us that he doesn't actually want to talk to The Miz at all. The only person he wants to talk to is his WrestleMania opponent, the man that no one can see, Mr. John Cena, and basically just says, "Look, on Monday, I'm going to be on Monday Night Raw. You going to be there? Because we need to have a conversation." And yeah.
Well, we already know that John Cena's going to be on Raw on Monday. It was announced on Monday, just gone. Cody's basically saying, "Yeah, I'm going to be
I'm going to be there too.
I'm going to be on Raw on Monday just to come face to face with this with Mr. Hustle, loyalty, respect, not." And we'll see what he's got to say for himself. So something to look forward to for Monday.
You might even get to see the final boss as well. We went
this is
from this.
Oh, not the final boss. We get nobody said The Rock is going to be in attendance on Monday.
He didn't. No one has said that yet. We get to see Cena.
And
Cena is currently Rocky's bitch, so we could, in theory, possibly possibly see Rocky Boy as well, but I say that's a theory. We went from this little segment into a backstage segment with Nick Aldis. This guy's been busy already, and this is we've only had one match so far, two matches. Two matches and a fight. Well, one match and a fight. Let's put it that way. And we've seen Nick Aldis twice already, and he's basically telling off Shinsuke Nakamura for missing the ref. And Shinsuke's like, I don't really care about that. I just want my rematch. Like, where's my rematch? And that's when we find Damian Priest come in looking for Drew, and he's told that that Drew's gone, and we're left with Priest saying, well, he wants to fight, and Nakamura wants his rematch. So Nick Aldis sets up a match between Damian Priest and Shinsuke Nakamura for later on. Well, for a little bit later on, which we then find out as we scroll through is our next match.
Yeah, so we go into this men's singles match that was set up just a few moments ago between Shinsuke Nakamura and Damian Priest, and this match just sort of illustrated to me why I knew I was right about Shinsuke Nakamura.
Yeah.
His time in the WWE is done.
Yeah, he doesn't really look like he wants to be there. The matches they're putting him in all just seem very ad lib. Like, at no point would we have seen... You can understand Damian Priest going against Shinsuke Nakamura if he was still holding the US title, because Priest has had conversations about looking at that title. But, yeah, it just seemed a little bit... Yeah, not all there.
I just feel like Nakamura's not putting the effort in anymore. I feel like when he first debuted back in 2017, I believe.
But yeah, when he first debuted, he came in with an awful lot of energy and some poor promo skills, and he's leaving with no energy and even worse promo skills.
Yeah, there's no. There's nothing there. There's no substance. He's a warm body at this point, and even during this match, like Damian Priest takes early control. It is a case that
Damian Priest pretty much has full control up until the midway point of this match, if not a little bit later in. To be fair, a lot of my notes for this aren't huge.
No, mine aren't either. In fact, one of the notes that I put down,
a long match anyway.
One of the notes I put down for this match is I felt that even sort of commentary on SmackDown was struggling with trying to sort of hype this match up, because I just very much got the impression that he weren't in this. It's hard. Like, Damian Priest was doing his best, but there's only so much you can do in a one-man in a sort of a one-man.
Yeah, it's a tag match. You've got three of you can carry the guy who really don't want to be there through a match. But in a one-on-one match, Damian Priest can only wrestle himself 95% of it. I know Damien Sandow probably would have given it a good go and probably put on a better match than what Shinsuke Nakamura could these days against himself. But it was poor. All I've got notes-wise here was Damian Priest managed to hit a rather nice South of Heaven, but we all know Damian Priest can hit that move well. And I also got that he counted a Kinshasa at one point, and we had some interference from Mr. McIntyre.
Yeah, so McIntyre sort of he just made a random appearance at the announce desk partway through the match, and it just sort of I think it took everybody off their game, because he did just seem to appear out of nowhere.
This wasn't Randy Orton we're talking about. This is Drew McIntyre.
Yeah. And the distraction sort of started to give Shinsuke a little bit of hope in the match from what I watched, but
Yeah. So
it
Drew
still
gave
ended up being moved to a being called as a no contest after Drew just couldn't keep his hands to himself, basically.
he stuck them. He stuck his thumbs deep into the back of Damian Priest's eye sockets, pretty much. And while Damian Priest was reeling from that, Shinsuke Nakamura hit him with a Kinshasa to the back of the head, and then we saw sort of like him staring Drew McIntyre out before he basically goes, "I know what's coming. I'm getting the fuck out of here," and leaves. Before Drew starts beating Damian Priest down, and he throws him out of the ring, throws him into the barricades, throws him into the steel steps. Like, Priest is pretty much done at this point. And then that's pretty much McIntyre's just had his fun, really. I think this is definitely built into we're going to get a Priest versus McIntyre match at Mania. Whether they decide to throw an extra person in there and make it a triple threat between them, it'd be an interesting one, but I think it's more than likely going to be Priest versus McIntyre at Mania.
I was going to say I don't see Nakamura getting another WrestleMania moment at this stage. It just doesn't seem to make sense to do anything like that for him.
No, it doesn't.
Especially when he's not really giving the effort that would warrant that.
Yeah, some people that do put in a lot of effort and would warrant a very nice WrestleMania placement is the people in the next segment, where we have a backstage interview with Kathy Kelly talking to the BITWTT, whatever they call themselves. Basically, he's talking to DIY, who like to refer to themselves as the best tag team in the world, or something like those. Yeah, it's the best tag team in the world, which is a bit of a stretch when we get to see the best tag team ever on NXT last week.
Yeah, well, it's just a case now that again, I'm not really feeling the love for DIY anymore at the moment. I think that they've overplayed their hand a little bit.
Yeah,
now
they're running towards the end of their story. Now they've done the dirty deed with Pretty Deadly, and they've used Pretty Deadly as much as they can. Everyone's kind of seen what they're capable of when it comes to the manipulation and the head games, and they've also seen what DIY can do. They're very good tag champions, very good tag team, but they are limited in their moveset, and they've been champions for that long that they've faced every other team in the division multiple times. Everyone's kind of got their number marked now. And this backstage interview is building up to their match with Street Profits, and Tommaso Ciampa asks why SmackDown is the greatest tag team division, and they basically say because DIY are there and they're at the top and everyone's trying to reach their level, when they are very politely interrupted by what is becoming my favourite tag team in the division, the Motor City Machine Guns. I know it's definitely one of Adam's favourite tag teams in the division. You love MCMG.
I love a bit of MCMGs. Gotta love a bit of Alex Shelley.
And Chris Sabin.
Yeah, no
forgetting the love
of
for
course.
Chris Sabin.
Definitely not. I might have temporarily forgotten his name, but yeah.
It's all right. I had to get you to remind me about Alex Shelley for me to be able to remember Chris Sabin. It's fine. So they basically came in talking about the cheap shots that DIY gave to them to win the titles, and how they have unfinished business with DIY after DIY have their match today with Street Profits for the tag titles, and I'm not going to lie, I'm kind of hoping that they do manage to give DIY the old slip and have a run with the titles, because they were supposed to have a title match before they got injured, weren't they? So
Yeah, very much so. So it's a case that I think if DIY walk out of the main event, if DIY were to walk out of the main event on this card with the tag titles, it would be a case that we'll see them versus the Motor City Machine Guns again. If they don't, and they're stripped of the titles that are at the end of the card,
we get Street
it's a
Profits.
case that we'll probably see. We'll probably end up seeing a.
Well, it won't actually. It'll be Street Profits versus Pretty Deadly, because last week there was a 3-man tag match, which was really hard to make notes on. Because only 2 people were allowed in the ring at the same time, between Motor City Machine Guns, Pretty Deadly, and Los Garza.
Yeah.
And Pretty Deadly managed to get a cheeky roll up to win that to become the number 1 contenders for the tag team championship after this match in the main event later. So
it's either going to be that DIY and Motor City Machine Guns end up having a title match or a grudge match. It's one of the two.
And then if Street Profits walk out at the end, they will be facing Pretty Deadly in their first title defense. Now, during this match during this program where we watched it live, there was quite a few sections where they had adverts and stuff that Netflix couldn't show, so they put in like a little VT of who's who in wrestling on the current roster. Now, there was one little bit where they had 4 people in a group. One of them was Solo Sikoa, one of them was Tawatonga, one of them was Jacob Fatu. There was a 4th guy in one of the pictures. Do you know who that was?
Yes.
Who was it?
Tonga Loa.
Right, okay.
Because I remember you asking me at the time when we were watching it, and I think I actually told you at the time when we were watching it.
But I didn't make notes of it at the time. So
no, I didn't. But the minute you started asking the question, I knew the answer. Because I remember having to go and research who the hell it was, because I spotted the same thing as you and was like, yeah, I'm not entirely sure who that is either.
Yeah, so he is a member of the Bloodline, but he is currently out with a torn bicep, which he suffered at Survivor Series, and is requiring surgery, so he's currently out indefinitely. So he's made in-ring appearances within the group, but he got injured when CM Punk hit him with a toolbox and it popped his bicep, which is a little bit unfortunate. But all the same, we will probably see him back in in-ring action soon, once he's had his surgery and healed properly from it. But he is also Tama Tonga's adopted brother.
Oh, right, okay.
Which is always
didn't go into that much detail in the research of him, but
that was literally just me scrolling through Wikipedia on my phone quickly while we were going.
Fair enough. That's where a majority of our research comes from, let's face it.
Then had a little section about who's who in the crowd, with some of the celebrities that were in attendance. The one they focused on most that I remember was Lamine Yamal, who is a football player for FC Barcelona. For those of you who are England fans, that is the guy that absolutely destroyed us in the last international tournament when he was 16. So yeah, poor guy is a very talented individual, and he is a massive WWE fan. So it was nice to have Lamine Yamal in attendance.
Well, they had a few others from FC Barcelona as well in there.
Did. There was Lamine Yamal was the only name I remembered and the only one I recognised. I am not a huge English football fan.
No, I'm not. I'm more of a lover of playing soccer than actually watching it. Um,
Yeah,
I'll watch the international tournaments and things like that, and I'll take an interest. But in terms of club level, nah, no interest. Um, So yeah, but the next bit that we went to after that, I believe, was all to do with another backstage promo with another interview with Kathy Kelly, but this time she's interviewing Chelsea Green and her secret Hervis.
yeah. So that is, well, up until last week was just Piper Nevin. Now she has a new member of her secret Hervis in Alba Fire as well.
Yeah, now I had trouble placing Alba Fire. I definitely remember hearing the name. I've got a feeling we've seen her in NXT
Uh,
potentially.
Possibly.
Um, I was hoping you might have known, but it's not the end of the world. But yeah, I mean, basically, Green's now saying that her secret Hervis is at full force now with Alba Fire being involved. Um, and yeah, I mean, sort of, we then get a visit from somebody who I'm very much a fan of, just because, well, I'm very much an advocate for. I won't say a fan of because I just don't think we've seen enough from her in any sort of a big way.
Yeah, so
The
Alba Phi was in the inaugural Mae Young Classic in 2017. She signed with
right,
WWE in 2019 onto the NXT brand. She is a one-time NXT UK Women's Champion, holding the record for the longest women's reign at 649 days. She
wow,
then moved to NXT and changed her name to Alba Fire, and she became a one-time NXT Women's Tag Team Championship alongside Isla Dawn, with her team being the final holder of the championship before it was unified with the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship and moved up to the main roster in April last year, where she won the Women's Tag Team Championship, becoming the second female tag team to have won both the WWE and the NXT tag team, with, again, Isla Dawn. And now she is a member of the Secret Hervis with Piper Nevin for Chelsea Green. So, to be fair, she has been within the business for a long time. Started off on the indie circuit as well, actually, with ICW wrestling, as a lot of them seem to, but she's a British wrestler as well. I say British, she's from Scotland. So we won't
yeah,
piss her off too much. But
no, let's not.
yeah, definitely a good one there.
Um, yeah, so we had Zelina Vega come in basically to remind Chelsea Green that she's already stated her intentions to go after the Women's United States Championship.
Selena Vega, we haven't seen a lot of her. She does pop up occasionally in the odd backstage segment, but we haven't seen her in the ring for a little while. And I'm kind of looking forward to it, to when we get the opportunity. And at the end of this segment, we find out we're not going to have to wait too much longer, because next week we have a match between Zelina Vega and Piper Nevin.
Well, Zelina Vega made her way to SmackDown after being transferred during the transfer window earlier in the year from Raw, where she was a member of LWO, over to SmackDown, where she was separated from all of that. It was a very emotional farewell. They had their last match together on Raw, and then she came over to SmackDown, and she's just been floating in and out, basically trying to get the lay of the land by the looks of it, and has sort of set her eyes solely on Chelsea Green and Chelsea Green's championship.
Well, let's face it this way: Zelina Vega's been looking for some low-hanging fruit, and she's found it in Chelsea Green.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I'm the same as you. I'm looking forward for Vega to show us next week why it is that she gets the WWE money, essentially, because we haven't seen a massive amount of her to be able to say, oh yeah, no, this is.
Such and such.
We're definitely seeing that WWE are getting their money's worth, sort of thing. At the minute, we've sort of had very much the opposite.
Yeah. Which is not something we can say about the two guys in the next match, but guessing as normal, we've got another VT that I've forgotten to write.
No, you're spot on track so far.
When it comes to money, the two guys in this match, both at different ends of the scale. When Randy Orton is fit, he's probably making a fair chunk of change doing what he does and does very well. Where recently we've seen an awful lot of Carmelo Hayes, so his paycheck's been going up with his appearance money.
Yeah, very much so.
I wouldn't say I'm too bad at it, to be fair.
No, he's definitely been getting his appearances in, and
They've not been poor quality appearances either. Like, he's not been jobbed out like we're used to him being a majority of the time. He's actually being allowed to have some fun and get on and do some stuff, which is nice.
yeah, this is it. And do you know what? I actually really enjoyed this match in general. This match was one of my more favourite matches of this card. Was Randy Orton versus Carmelo Hayes. As I'm always a fan of seeing the Viper go. Anyway, it's one of those.
You can't be a pro wrestling fan dislike watching Randy Orton just for what he brings to the ring. Like, whether he's playing a heel role or a face role, he still brings the pain, and he brings his best every time. And his best is always pretty much phenomenal and spot on. I don't think I can say in recent times that I've watched a Randy Orton match and gone, that was a really bad match.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as you. To be honest, I'm not recalling any match in any sort of memory of mine that I remember seeing Randy Orton in, and it being. I'm coming out of that match thinking, do you know what? Actually, that was pretty shit. So yeah,
This one didn't really disappoint either, to be fair.
No, it definitely did not, and I'd have been a little bit upset if it had, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, it's a case that Hayes was completely outclassed in this match. Basically, he didn't really sort of stand much of a chance, in my view.
And considering this is Randy Orton's first match since October last year, he looked pretty fucking good. There was no ring rust there at all, really, to be fair. Not that I can recall. He definitely looked good. We did see a few little opportunities for Carmelo Hayes. He did get a very nice drop toe hold on Randy, knocking the absolute air out of him before he tried to lock in a submission move. With Randy actually struggling to break out, but he does manage to get out of it eventually. And as always, Randy takes himself to his happy place after a very nice snap slam. Like, the way he just grabs people out of midair and just tosses them over is incredible. His speed and his agility, even with the injuries he's had, and even with the age he's at, Randy Orton's in his early 40s here. He's taken a lot of bumps over the years, and he's given out a lot of bumps. And Jesus, man,
Randy Orton's older than that. He's pretty sure he's crossed the threshold into his 50s.
Jesus. Well, if that is the case, for his age, he looks incredible. But yeah, I wouldn't want to be doing what he's doing.
Oh, tell a lie. I've literally just looked it up. He's 44.
Yeah, I
My
was going to
bad.
say, I knew he was sort of. Even then, he looks better at 44 than I do at 34, so I'm not going to complain too much.
Sorry, guys. My bad. My bad.
Not even sure that's PG. But yeah, this match was a way of basically letting Randy warm himself up, and we got to see a lot of Randy Orton's signature stuff. We got the DDT off the second rope, the snap slam. Well, to be fair, he caught Carmelo Hayes in mid-air at one point, and yeah, he used that snap slam for a 2 count.
Yeah.
But then Carmelo Hayes got in some nice moves as well. He hit Diamond Cutter off the second rope for a 2 count. I mean, he hit a first 48 at one point. What I did like was the fact he hit the first 48, and Randy Orton's like slightly oversold it to a point, and just as Carmelo Hayes turned around, Randy hit him with a real RKO. But you'd seen that it was being teased. Like he does his normal, oh, I'm going to get you. No, I'm not. Am I going to get you? No, I'm not.
Yeah. And Carmelo Hayes just kept dodging the hell out of it.
He did.
In fairness, the one thing that I did put down about this match is that sort of Hayes does his best to put up a fight, but sort of never really poses a legitimate threat.
No. And we've seen that with Carmelo Hayes the last few weeks. He's not a bad wrestler. He's not a bad character. He's
a very talented in-ring superstar. He's just not at the same level as somebody like Randy Orton.
And that's purely for the fact that he just does not have the time in the ring that Randy Orton has at the level that Randy Orton had it. I mean, this guy's 14-time world champion or something like that.
Something along those lines.
Like, this guy has spent a lot of time with gold around his waist. So he's going to have a lot more experience than Carmelo Hayes. Not knocking what Carmelo Hayes has done. He's held a few titles himself. Not big titles, but he's had some titles.
Yeah, very much
US
so.
Title he had at one point?
I'm not 100% sure on that one, I will be honest.
He's a former one-time NXT champion, and he's a 2-time and longest combined reigning NXT North American champion, and he had the final NXT Cruiserweight reign as well. So he's had, like I said, he's had some gold. He may not have had big gold, but he's held gold. I suppose he's had the NXT Championship. He's had big gold too.
Has he had the NXT Championship?
According to Wikipedia, he's a former one-time NXT champion.
Right, okay. I'm not sure how much I believe that, if I'm honest. Wikipedia is one of those things that you can be altered, sort of thing. I'm literally going through a couple of different sources I've got now. I've got here, trying to see if I can sort of see that somewhere, but yeah, his first title reign, according to what I can see here, apart
Hayes
from
defeated Bron Breakker in the main event of NXT Stand and Deliver 2023.
Oh, right, okay.
April 1st, 2023, Hayes defeated Breakker in the main event of NXT Stand and Deliver to win the NXT Championship. 3 nights later,
Hayes.
On NXT, Hayes turned face after Breakker and raged over having lost the title. Turned heel by faking a show of respect and attacking Hayes. Yeah, so basically, he beat Breakker, and Breakker turned on him to start that one. And then at NXT Battleground, Hayes defended the title against Breakker and then lost it. retained against Corbin at American Bash. Defended against Ila Dragnovic at NXT.
See, I misunderstood completely. I thought we were talking about Randy Orton, I will be honest.
No. Carmelo Hayes has had and he lost it to Dragunov in a rematch later on in the year. So
I'm going to say, because,
No Mercy, that was the one. And losing it at NXT No Mercy in 2023. So yeah, I don't know. Randy Orton was on main roster before NXT was even swimming around in Vince's mind. It was probably OVW when Randy Orton was there.
Well, in OVW, Randy Orton did have a few title runs, but nothing of significance. The first title run he had on main roster was as an Intercontinental title holder, which he held for a total of 210 days back sort of end of 2003 to mid 2004. One of his shortest reigns was less than a day, which has happened to him twice. Once in 2007, where he won the WWE Heavyweight Championship and lost it on the same night. Although, according to what I'm reading here in front of me, he may have won it back again on the same night, because his second reign is exactly the same date and lasted for 203 days after that. He then also had a his fourth World Heavyweight Championship reign lasted less than a day as well.
Oh, I'm surprised he didn't hold the 24/7 title for less than an hour at some point.
No, so no 24/7, although he's at least twice three times tag team champions. 4 times tag team champions, apologies.
Rated RKO would be one.
Yeah, that was his first tag team championship. He was then a SmackDown tag team champion with Bray Wyatt and Luke Harper as the Wyatt family.
Right, he was in the Wyatt.
Randy Orton was, yeah, he was sort of seconded into there at one point. And then he's had 2 runs with the Raw Tag Team Champions with Matt Riddle as RK Bro. And actually, one of those WWE Tag Team Championships may have actually been one of his last championship reigns that he's had up to now.
Yeah, so he's had a fairly prominent career throughout the time. But one man we did not expect to see in this match, we had a visit from Kevin Owens, who saved Carmelo Hayes from getting punt kicked out of the arena. And he throws Randy into a steel post and then pisses off through the crowd to finish that one off at the end. We then cut from there into a Jacob Fatu. I want to call it a promo. It's not. It's just Fatu being Fatu, basically calling out Braun Strowman and saying that next week we're going to get another match between Jacob Fatu and Braun Strowman.
It's another one of these really ropey promos he has a tendency to do that don't always make a tremendous amount of sense.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm still very much on the fence. Very much on the fence as to what it is that he is physically capable of doing when it comes to cutting promos, because I don't believe that he's as capable as a lot of people seem to think he is. I feel there's a lot more improvement needed there before he's going to be sort of competent on the mic.
I think a lot of it is more his anxiety, to be fair. I don't think he's as comfortable with a mic in his hand as he possibly could be. He's definitely very comfortable in the ring. Someone who else that is also very comfortable in the ring is the man that has held the World Heavyweight Championship for the last 223 days, with 5 defenses of that title in that time. We get the Ring General Gunther come down. No,
So
I wasn't.
just before this happened,
Oh,
the tiniest of tiny little things, we did actually have the smallest VT ever, which just it was basically a graphic. We had a VT with some smoke and the number 4.
we did.
But we know that these little vignettes are normally a precursor to somebody appearing.
Yeah, and the 4 with the smoke is normally a sign that we are going to see our group of masked amigos that like to raid.
Not necessarily, because that's an NXT thing. That's not something we'd normally see on
Oh no, the
SmackDown, especially while they're on their
smoke.
European tour.
Yeah, the smoke. Sorry, is an Aleister Black thing, isn't it? That's
It
Aleister
can
Black.
be.
It's possibly an Aleister Black reference. He's just left AEW, and there are some rumors floating around that he is going to make an appearance back in WWE, but I don't think anything has been confirmed yet.
No, not yet. But yes, quite right. After that happens, we do have a rare in-ring promo for Friday Night Smackdown of Gunther coming out as he is Monday Night Raw's resident heavyweight champion.
He is.
And yeah, I mean, he came out. I think it was Gunther that made a sly dig at the fact that it would have been better if they were in Madrid.
Yes. Obviously, Madrid and Barcelona have a lot of rivalry with the fact that Real and Barcelona are two of the biggest teams in Spanish football at the moment.
Yeah, pretty much.
But,
But yeah, Gunther basically comes out, runs down Barcelona, runs down his WrestleMania opponent of Jey Uso,
yeet.
and then in an odd move, hypes up a. I honestly didn't realize that this guy was actually Spanish,
I
but
didn't either. Not gonna lie to you.
I didn't think he was Mexican, as a lot of people would assume, but I just didn't. I always assumed he was American.
I thought he
I
was
will be
French.
honest. But yeah, I mean,
So we've seen recently that Gunther, since Jay won the Royal Rumble, has been having some really obscure matches. We've seen him have matches with Akira Tozawa and Otis from, I want to say Alpha Academy.
yeah,
Yep, I got it right for once. And then yeah, which I'm not entirely sure. Those were more the fact that Gunther doesn't like clowns and people clowning around, because we saw those two plus Maxine Dupree a few weeks ago making a TikTok video in backstage, and that pissed Gunther off. That's why he had the match with Akira Tozawa. And then this week he calls out Axiom for a match.
from NXT.
Yeah, so Axiom is a one half of the NXT tag team title Fraxium with Nathan Fraser. And yeah, he before he was a professional wrestler, did you know that Axiom played for Real Madrid?
I didn't know that.
Actually,
But then again, as I said, I didn't even realize he was Spanish until he came out here.
yeah, so Axiom played for Real when he was younger. I don't actually know. I can't tell you too much about his football career because I don't know who Axiom is to be able to go and do too much research, and I don't really want to ruin the luchador thing by going off and telling you that who he is and what he did. But I don't believe he was a first teamer for Real. This one was actually like, I went into this match when they first brought it out going, great, Gunther's going to slap Axiom around for about 5 minutes and then, you know, he'll throw him out and that'll be the end of that. That was not the way this match went down. Axiom
Definitely
came in
not.
and put up a hell of a match. And to be fair, like, I remember saying this as we were watching it, Gunther wasn't going to lose this match, and he doesn't. But Axiom gave enough that he made his character stronger by taking the loss than he did by letting them squash him. Because he went and had a damn good match against a singles champion in the next division above, I suppose. And he still managed to put on a hell of a show and do really, really well. And
Well,
we saw some amazing moves from him as well.
I mean, the way to compare this, I mean, the way that squash matches used to be, and I'm going to sort of use the divider of back in the Vince McMahon era,
Yeah.
squash matches, you used to use local talent. Nobody had ever heard of them. Probably one of their first ever televised matches in front of a crowd that size. Used to have the guy come out. It was literally a couple of they used to get hit once, then probably have a finisher done, a finishing move done on them. The match was over in less than 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was a really good way of building up this the WWE talent they were trying to build up, and they didn't really lose anything because the local talent they were using were not WWE signed; they were sort of subcontracted in.
Yeah,
And then
it didn't
when they
affect
started
their
moving,
character build in their promotions, and they still got a
no,
little bit of exposure.
and towards the end, local talent started wising up to this a little bit. Is that the matches I think that they were talked into being done in the earlier days were like, yeah, come and have a match, we'll make you look really good, and in the end, it's just a hideous pile of shit on from their perspective, because there's nothing anybody's going to know from a promoter's point of view from that kind of a match. We've then got the squash matches the squash matches towards the end of the Vince McMahon era, where he was using in-house talent to bolster other people, and these were some big names that used to get used for these squash matches. I mean, Dolph Ziggler was a famous one for having squash matches against other WWE talent, and it just used to completely destroy Dolph Ziggler's credibility, which is why he's now gone over to, I want to say TNA.
He's currently I believe, no, he was the TNA main title holder, but he lost his title to Joe Hendry.
Well, he's currently wrestling with his brother, so he's wrestling under the name of Nick Nemeth, with his brother Ryan Nemeth, and yeah, I mean, doing really well over there because he's been repackaged. He's not this Dolph Ziggler, this complete pushover of a superstar anymore. It's a case that this is how it's done. Whereas now that we're in the Paul Levesque Triple H era of his leadership and how he's producing the content, it is a case that even the squash matches are not as squashy as they used to be. It's a case now that the talent is protected by having a decent match instead of just wham bam, thank you ma'am, nice easy payday sort of thing.
Well, yeah, and it was nice to have, actually. It was definitely, this match was definitely really, really good quality match as well, which is, like you said, not something you get from squash matches, and this definitely was not something we could class that as, because Axiom was amazing.
Yeah,
missile
to the
drop
point
kicks, he kicked out power bombs, he hit Hurricane Rana off the top rope, and then a super kick for a 2 count. Like, Gunther was not going to let him win, but Gunther took some damage, which is not something we're used to seeing Gunther take. I mean, he did take some against Otis, which really caught him off guard. But I think, with Axiom being a tag champion, or tag team title holder, he was going to get a bit more of a match.
Well, I pointed out to you when we originally watched this back when we were originally watching this live that each week Gunther is having more and more issue with the opponents he's facing, which we're led to believe that he's hand selecting himself, so he knows what he's getting himself in for, but he's still continuing to have more and more issue as weeks go on. Now, we're still a few weeks away from WrestleMania. We've still got a little bit of way to go, and before he faces Jey Uso on the grandest stage of them all. Are we going to see a point where he doesn't necessarily have to lose, but is he going to come in one of these little exhibition matches that he seems to be putting on? Are we going to see him come dangerously close?
I mean, there's definitely a very strong possibility.
I think it's more than a strong possibility. Personally, I think we are definitely more likely to see that happen to him, just because it seems to be the trend, and I don't know if it's unintentional or what's going on, but yeah, I'm definitely seeing some cracks. I mean, we've said from the get-go, the minute that Jey Uso won at Royal Rumble, Jey Uso's going on to win the title at WrestleMania. Hands down, definitely happening.
Yeah, and I think what we're going to do here is they're going to put Gunther in some slightly longer matches, make us see where his weak points are, make him see where we struggle. They'll have him lose possibly a week or two before WrestleMania in a squash match. They'll have someone go in and roll him. I don't know who it'll be, but I reckon they'll have a non-title match. Someone will roll him and it will knock his confidence, and that'll be what it will need for Jey to then to win, especially if the person that knocks his confidence makes an appearance at WrestleMania while Jey and Gunther are having their match. Doesn't necessarily have to interfere, but just enough for them to clock eyes and be like, he kicked my ass. Shit. Long enough for Jey to whack a couple of super kicks and a spear in for the 3 count, I reckon.
Yeah, very much so. But yeah, Gunther won this one, locked in a sleeper hold on Axiom, but there was nobody there to sort of come and save Axiom this week.
I was expecting Nathan Fraser to take a run out and give his teammate a hand, but no, he was not in the building.
I see. I was expecting Jey Uso to come.
Yeah, no. One thing I was not expecting was an in-ring promo from Paul Heyman.
So yeah, this was this followed a VT recapping Raw from the steel cage match last week, where
reappeared and gave Seth Rollins a bit of a hiding, and then went and said hello to his friend CM Punk in the ring as well.
Yeah, I don't think anyone was expecting that, but again, it is a case that we've got to remember that CM Punk was CM Punk was a Paul Heyman guy before a lot of other people were Paul Heyman guys, sort of thing.
Punk
it's
the original WWE Paul Heyman guy.
Pretty much, yeah. But Paul's not here to talk about any of that.
No, he's not.
He has declared this night Roman Reigns Day.
And do we know why he's declared this specific day is Roman Reigns Day, Adam?
Well, Roman Reigns is the cover of 2K25, and this just when this goes out, when this episode aired, it just so happened to be the official release day of 2K25. So, I mean, a number of people, myself included, have had access to the game for a little bit longer than others. Mostly because they
bought the expensive and got early access.
Well, no, it was anybody that pre-ordered, I believe. So as long as you got your pre-order in, you got up to 7 days of early access. But there were some bits that were still roped off. So this release date released access to things like the island and other such bits of content like that. I believe, not 100% certain on that,
Yeah,
but
he does quote in there that yes, CM Punk is his friend, but it's not Punk Day, it's Reigns Day, and it is not and ever and will never be Seth Rollins Day. And he goes on to say how much he hates that Seth Rollins entry song as the crowd starts singing it. And if anyone
yeah,
has a problem, they can take it up with Roman Reigns in Bologna, Italy next week. And we get a little conversation from Wade Barrett. He's just throwing out there that Paul Heyman does still owe CM Punk a favor.
he
And
does.
and then he goes on to say that in Bologna, Italy, we've got a few other matches that have already been lined up. So we've got the Jade Cargill Liv Morgan match that we've spoken about earlier. We have the
Yeah.
Zelina Vega Piper Nevin match, which we've mentioned. And of
Yes.
course, we have our Braun Strowman versus Jacob Fatu match that we've already mentioned. And we have our DIY versus. No, it's not DIY.
Street Profits.
No, DIY versus Street Profits is next. There was a combination of what happens with this match foretells what goes on with the number one contendership and what goes on between DIY and Motor City Machine Guns. So, like I said, our last match and the main event of this week's SmackDown is Street Profits versus DIY for the tag team titles. And before we get into the match, we once again have a selection of interviews and VTs. The first one we have is a little backstage promo where Street Profits bump into
Legado del Fantasma.
yeah, on the way out to the ring, who basically just wish them luck because they would prefer to take the tag team titles off Street Profits rather than DIY. Which, I mean, I'm not 100% sure on that logic myself. I'd probably rather face DIY because we know a little bit more about them than Street Profits, who we've not seen for a little while. We then see big man Jimmy Uso sat backstage just sort of relaxing, and Gunther comes and sits down next to him and says that they have some things in common, asked if he watched his match, and he added a few cheap shots in there about Jay and how he choked him out like a wet paper towel last week. And he says
Basically
to Jimmy
comes along to try and get Jimmy to
to turn on
talk
Jay.
Jay out of the match.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, don't let him do it. He's gonna get absolutely beaten and broken, and no one wants to see that happen. And Big Jim pops up a little yeet, and Gunther said he was sorry he was mistaken for what he said to Jimmy about Jay, thinking that Jimmy might actually want to help his brother instead of watching him get destroyed anyway. And then we jump back into our main event of the evening, which is about to start, and it's started by Angelo Hawkins and Tommaso Ciampa.
Yeah, and do you know, I didn't get a fantastic amount of notes for this match.
I got a
really
few.
didn't.
I got a few, but I didn't get a huge amount, purely for the fact that the fan in me took over and decided
Yeah.
that we'd come back and watch it at a later date, and time has not allowed me to have that second watch through. I did make note of a few different spots. There was an assisted moonsault by the Street Profits, and Tommaso Ciampa kicked out as Dawkins hits Gargano on the outside at the same time. Tommaso Ciampa hits a rather nice running knee on Montez Ford to throw him out of the ring at one point. Then there was a 450 frog attempt for a 2 count after it was reversed. But again, like, a lot of my notes are a little bit iffy on this one. Got a little bit of trivia for you, Adam. Do you know who the first person to attempt a 450 frog splash was?
Yes, and the reason I know this is because both me and you have seen the same video,
Yep.
and B, I was the one that told you.
Probably.
So the answer to your question is Scott Steiner.
Which is not something you expect to see from a guy that well built, but yeah, no.
So back in the 70s or 80s, I believe you said it was, he actually did a 450 splash off the top rope. The only difference is that he lands on his feet before hitting his opponent, and it was his way of basically protecting his opponent. As we've said on the podcast before, an incredibly important skill for a professional wrestler. It isn't just about kicking their ass.
Yeah, no, definitely. One of the main sort of side points from this match that I think deserves a mention is at some point towards the end of the match, we see a pretty big fuck up from Johnny Gargano, and he ends up super kicking Tommaso Ciampa, which is his teammate, right in the chops.
Yes, and this isn't the first time we've seen this happen either.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Um,
We've seen a fair few faulty super kicks between the two of them over the last couple of months.
Yeah, very much so. And this is where we've seen sort of the cracks start to appear, as we have a tendency to see happen.
And we've mentioned that we've seen these cracks happening recently as well, so we definitely know kind of how
where this is going.
Yeah, this is going to split up DIY, and it's going to send Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa onto singles runs again.
Possibly against one another, I would imagine. But
yes,
to start that process off, they would first need to drop those pesky tag titles, which unfortunately for DIY happens on this very evening, as Street Profits take the victory and become new SmackDown Tag Team Champions.
Yep, they certainly do. It means that the first step in the downfall of DIY is done, and we get a new tag run with Street Profits, which I hope are going to end up giving us some incredible matches with those titles around their shoulders.
Well, feasibly, their first opponents are going to be the current number one contenders, Pretty Deadly, and who knows when we might see that? That could be a SmackDown before WrestleMania job. Who knows?
I mean, it definitely could be. It could definitely be a SmackDown after WrestleMania job too. So, yeah, there's going to be interesting to see what's kind of going off with this one.
Yeah, very much so. But that takes me to the end of my notes for this week's SmackDown.
Yep, mine are pretty much done as well. I will not lie to you.
So I think at this stage it's important that we obviously thank everybody for listening.
Of course. If you have any
make sure you
feedback for
recommend-
us as well, please get hold of us on our email. It's finishersandfactions@gmail.com. Or even if you just want to write us an email and tell us, hey, love the show, can you give us a shout out? We'll certainly do it.
Yeah, the email is checked regularly by either myself or Rich. So 100% we'll carve out some time on a podcast episode to go through all of it, or even just drop you a response ourselves and start a conversation. But Yeah, 100%. Give us any feedback that you've got, but most importantly, recommend us to your friends. Every one of us has got a friend that likes wrestling. Just so happens that my friend who also happens to like wrestling is the other guy that does the podcast with me. So we can recommend it between ourselves all we like, but that's not going to get us any more listeners.
It's not. It's not. But no, thank you all for choosing to listen to us today, and we will see you next time on Monday. Finishers and Factions does Monday Night Raw from Brussels, Belgium.
Yes, 100%, where we will see the man who can't be seen. Until then, let's not see you either. So we'll speak to you all again soon. Thank you so much for listening.
Peace out. Enjoy.
Bye.